like making my own system, how to help people raise their consciousness. And to raise your consciousness, you need to take away what is holding you back. And most of the time, this is negative, trapped emotions that you have inherited from your mother and your father during childhood. The quick and easy way, because that's what emotional release is. It's a one-time thing, and it's a quick and easy way to identify negative, trapped emotion inherited from your parents and release and transition them over to a positive thing, raise your consciousness, and you feel better.
So kia ora, good morning, good afternoon and evening. Today I'm being joined by Emma, who lives on the other side of the world in the paradise for me. Emma, please tell us where you are located.
Okay, right now I'm in the Canary Islands, which is islands that belongs to Spain, but they're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And they're really paradise islands. The climate is just so perfect. And yeah, you asked me what I've been doing today, and yes, I've been on the white sandy beach, being in the sea to cool off. So
it sounds like, yeah, absolute paradise. It's winter here and not much snow has been falling this winter, so I'd much rather be on a tropical island enjoying peace. But why we are connecting today is because both you and I know the absolute importance of being able to take jackets off, and these jackets are filled with emotions, predominantly the more negative emotions. I believe that every emotion has its purpose, but we both believe that if we're able to take those off, then we really get that feeling of being able to sit up straight, meet life with a smile on our face. So please share the beautiful technique that you have developed over the years and how it came about.
yes, absolutely. About 10, 15 years ago, I stopped working in business. I worked for IBM in the computer, and I worked with banks basically. And the banking business was exciting for a while, but then not so. So I met a new man in my life, and we decided to do something else. So we traveled a lot around. I just quit my job, and we packed our small bag and just traveled around in Europe to see if we could find a place that would absolutely fascinate us. And as it got colder, we went further south and south and south, and then we ended up here. And it turned out that this island was his secret place where he could go and relax. Nobody knew about this. And I just loved it. It's a very quiet place, very calm energies. There's been no wars, no conflicts, no nothing. It's like one of the forgotten islands. And either you love it or you hate it. So we ended up here. And we rented the place in the beginning to see if it was doable to live here, because it's a little bit Africa, like access to internet, no, not so much. Mobile phones didn't work. We had to be on the roof terrace with our phones trying to get connected. So it was a bit difficult in the beginning, but now it's getting better and better. So we ended up. The plan was to build a health center, like holistic health center, but it was too early. So we registered a nonprofit organization so that we could help people who were given up by hospitals, depressed people who didn't know what to do, and so on. And we formed a group with doctors, nurses, osteopaths, and we started doing small things like under the radar of the governments and things like that, because it was kind of the problem here in Spain is that it's not so regulated by law, but if you do something, you can go to jail if you do the wrong thing. Yeah, so it's good and bad. And I was very fascinated by emotions and the mental side. And because I had all day off, I could start reading, and I couldn't stop reading. And I ended up finding David R. Hawkins, And one of my really favorite books was The Power versus Force and The Map of Consciousness. Yeah. So I read all that and started to understand, started like making my own system, how to help people raise their consciousness. And to raise your consciousness, you need to take away what is holding you back. And most of the time, this is negative, trapped emotions that you have inherited from your mother and your father during childhood. So, and it started with a friend who had cancer. She was recovering, and she knew what to do. Her cancer was in remission. And she said over and over again, it's like I have lead in my legs. I know what to do, but I don't have the energy to do it. I don't know how to do it on my own. As long as she was here, getting the help and being pushed in the right direction, it was okay. But on her own, she couldn't do it. And then I had read from Hawkins' book that you have to remove what is holding you back. And he suggested that we use arm testing, kinesiology, or muscle testing. And so we started testing, and she started opening up about her childhood. And she had a horrible childhood, and we had no idea because she kept it like hidden from us. And she had an older sister that was her mother's favorite. Her father was not present at all. She felt she didn't belong anywhere. She wasn't worth anything. She never had any. Yeah, she was just very lost. And now that she was in an environment where people liked to be with her, supported her, talked normally to her, it's an environment that she didn't knew how to handle things. So she was uncomfortable all the time. But she didn't want to go back to her old environment. So when we started identifying all these negative trapped emotion, we made lists. We made long lists of different negative trapped emotions, and we ended up with a list of 44 different negative trapped emotions, and we linked them to which organ, which element, and things like that, so we could go deeper in to a negative trapped emotion if we needed to. And then we was wondering how to release the negative trapped emotion. And we found loads of information from Hawkins. The power of prayer was one of the things. So we wrote a special prayer that we say in the beginning to help find these negative trapped emotions. And we use gratitude. We say, if we find a negative trapped emotion inherited from the mother and the father, we say, thank you for this negative trapped emotion and thank you for the experience. But now we're moving on, and we're releasing this negative trapped emotion, and we are replacing it with a higher, more vibrant, positive emotion. So because Hawkins says that two different emotions cannot be in the same place, so you have to transition them over to it. And he even says that a negative trapped emotion can be a program between your left and your right brain. Yeah. So if you have the program, when the trigger comes, the program runs. And if you want to get rid of this program, you have to build a new program and then trust this new program, and then the old one disappears. So the visualization is what we're trying to do. And in the beginning, we used a lot of tapping, like EFT, emotional freedom technique. We did tapping. We sat in circles and we did the tapping together, and that worked. But it takes a lot of time, so we were trying to find new ways to do it. And if we are face to face with people, it was very easy to use a magnet. And you have these very powerful nickel magnets that you can use. And you have to be aware that one side takes energy and the other one gives energy, the plus and the minus. So we did that, and people slept with magnets under the pillow for a while. So, I mean, during the last 10 years, we have been all over the place. And finally now the last few years we was like, okay, let's not experiment so much. Let's just do it the quick and easy way, because that's what emotional release is. It's a one-time thing, and it's a quick and easy way to identify negative trapped emotion inherited from your parents and release and transition them over to a positive thing, raise your consciousness, and you feel better, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That feeling better, and as I mentioned earlier, it's taking off that jacket. And I just want to highlight that, you know, someone might be watching this going, oh, but my parents weren't mean to me, or I had an idyllic childhood. I think it's all relative, right? Some people have had horrendous things happen to them that we don't wish on anyone, and others, you know, they might have just been picked last at sport one too many times, right? And there's everything in between. It might have just been you were in the room when your parent got the news that their parent passed away, and it was that absolute inconsolable moment of grief that you somehow poured into your soul, onto your physical body. So it goes from all spectrums, and it's all relative to see how you take that on at that moment.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because Hawkins, he said, it's not what happens to you, but how you handle what happens to you, how you react, and how you digest what happened. Because he says, like, a divorce can be a blessing for one person, but a catastrophe for another person. So you cannot say that a divorce is a terrible thing, because the person who is in the middle of a divorce, he can handle it. Said, okay, it might be for the better. It might give new opportunities. You can be positive, or you can be completely negative. You can become an offer and ruin your life. It's your choice. And the fact that we have a choice it's super important to tell people, because a lot of people don't really know.
Yeah.
So
I think what you said before of how we choose to handle it exactly is, and I think it is, as a parent, it is making your children resilient, and it's that whole, we've stepped away from you have to be the winner and be the best at school to, or you just need to participate. But I think it is somewhere in between. I believe that we still need to strive to be the best person that we can. And collaborating rather than competing for that. But if we come together and strive to be better, the world will be much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have an older sister, a sister that is 1 year and 3 months older than me, and we grew up in the same environment, same mother, father, same friends. We moved to a new neighborhood, we went to the same school, and we are like night and day. And it's so good to have an example like that, because she was afraid of almost everything, and I was not afraid of anything. So we're like polar opposite. And when she talks about childhood, it's like, what, was I there? I can't remember that. It's like she handled things so different from me. And she said, oh, our parents were not good enough, they didn't take care of us. It's like, what? I got all the freedom I wanted to do whatever I wanted, to develop my skills, to be out in nature, to experiment on things. And I had my freedom. It's like, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't have that freedom. But she wanted to be taken care of all the time. And parents don't have time to be there for you 24/7. Absolutely not.
No, exactly. I have the same with my sibling. We are, you know, same parents, same everything, same diet, same, and we haven't seen each other for more than 5 years now. He still is carrying so much anger about stuff that happened, and it's that whole he said, she said. And I think it is there are so many
Yeah.
beautiful healing modalities out there now, and from I've experienced yours, and it is such a, as you said earlier, it's such an easy way
Yeah.
to take multiple heavy jackets off and
Yeah.
embrace life just with a lot more vibrancy.
Yeah.
So how does it work? What do you need? You know, someone's like, oh, I'm carrying this massive backpack.
Yeah.
What can Emma do for me?
Well, people are very surprised how easy it is, because they send me emails and said, "Oh, I would love to try this. How does it work? Do I book a session? Do I have to see face to face, whatever?" And I just send them a short reply. Oh, all you have to do is send me your picture. Take your recent pictures where I can see your eyes, so I can connect with you, and your name and date of birth, so that I can make sure it's you, and send it by email, and I'll do it. So and it sounds too easy. It's like, what can you do with my pictures? Like, you don't know who I am. But I have this method. I meditate to make sure I'm connected, and I have a way of, if you use a pendulum or you use a biotensor, you have to make sure that you're coming from your heart and not from your head. So I have ways of making sure that I'm connected, and I have this picture in front of me, and I connect with their eyes, and I use their name, and I say the prayer, and I also ask their guides or connections to come help, and my spirit guides to come and help to identify, and then release and transition their negative trapped emotion. So I sit in the quiet place where there's no distractions. I have my chart, and I start asking with muscle testing. And I ask, do this person, 2 days ago, I did for a beautiful lady called, and she had so many negative trapped emotion. It was unbelievable. But I kept on asking, is that this negative trapped emotion? Yes. This negative trapped emotion is inherited. Yes. It's inherited from her mother. Yes. It's inherited from her father. Yes. And then I asked, do I need to know more? Yes or no? Is this like a heart wall? Is this a self-protect mechanism? So I keep asking until I have the answers. And sometimes it takes an hour. Sometimes it goes very quick, because there is messages in I get messages that I should give people, but I can't just like give it to them like straight up in their face. I have to sort of ask questions, and said, well, did something happen when you were around, for instance, an age, if there's a trauma in like self-harm, for instance, which a lot of people have. I said, do I need to know more? And I keep muscle testing, and it's like, yes. Did this happen between 0 and 10 years old, 10 and 15 years old? So then I have the date, and then I can ask, what happened when you were that age? And so on. So it's not like it's a therapy, it's just an awareness. And if I realize that this person has like post-traumatic stress from something, it's a very good way to say, take this package, take this form, go to a therapist and show them what you have found, and start working with it, because that's not my job. My job is just to identify and try to release as much as I can. But I have had people that we released everything, we did everything the same way we always do. The next day, everything comes back. So, and then we know this person needs professional help. And we're working with a hypnotist, which is super good. They use these brain waves, they hypnotize back to childhood, go through every event, and most people just release it because it's so deep in them. And then we have past life trauma.
Wow, of course, yes.
It's
And can it also be from the parents as well?
yes, especially like a negative trapped emotion like lack of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, most often it's like 2-3 generations back. It can be like 5 generations back, but most of the time it's like back to the Second World War if they're in Europe, and things like you can find out what happened if there was a famine, if there was a war, there was a conflict. Basically comes from there. And it depends on what country you come from. So I can see a difference from this. I do a lot on the Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And they have different negative trapped emotion than people from the United Kingdom,
Right.
and from Europe. And I have decided not to do Italians anymore because they're so full of conflicts and they have such a temper and they like to argue a lot. So I said, no, if you're Italian, no, go somewhere else. So it's really funny. But Americans, they have a lot of sadness, a lot of fear, things like that. So I can actually see the difference between the culture that people grow up in. And it's super interesting, super interesting.
Fascinating. So I have quite a few questions, but I'll start with the one where, why is it important to know on which organ the emotions are?
So the element, the organ and the element is a way to go deeper into the trauma. Because as I told you before, I work with an osteopath, and when she has patient that has a lot of like density or tense, they're very tense in certain areas of the body, she said, okay, I need you to release some of this tension, and she sends them to me and I do my thing, and when they come back it's easier to get access to the tissue. So for instance, if you have lack of love or feeling unwanted, it's connected to your heart. And it's also connected to fire, which is the element. And very often when I ask people, it's like, do you like spicy food, like hot food? It's like, no, I cannot tolerate it. Or they say, oh, I have to have spicy food to feel that I'm alive. And it can also have alcohol, like problem with alcohol, because they feel heavy and they want to feel that they're alive. So it gives you a clue on how deep it goes and how severe it is and how hard it is to release. So, but it's not very often you need it, but it is like an extra way to go deeper into and people can also say, oh, no wonder I have gut issues, look at what I have here. So
Right.
it makes them think as well. So it's just there for help, and it's been muscle tested, so tested, so it's correct.
Yes. Yeah, and just for those who are unaware of Dr. David Hawkins' work, he's muscle tested, I don't want to say millions of times, but lots and lots and lots of times about all topics from the truth that's within a book to the integrity of political leaders, right? And he uses the muscle testing technique to corroborate that information. And if you haven't read any of his books, my goodness, they are an absolute treasure trove. And I really see him, that he was a pioneer, he was ahead of his times. And I've listened to a lot of his audiobooks. The way that some of his audiobooks are, they, rather than a narration, they are an interview done with someone, and it's him. He is being interviewed, and he had a really quirky sense of humor. I often giggle.
He was very childlike. Yeah, he was very childlike. Yeah.
Yes.
And also a lot of the things that he says, he's like, he just says it out, like he doesn't give it a lot of weight. But really, when you start looking, especially the map of consciousness, he said that people under the level of 200, which is courage, cannot differentiate whether the things are true or not true. not true or false, but true or not true, because they believe that their own mind is true, but it's not if you don't have a higher consciousness. And that's really fascinating, because very often I want to teach people how to muscle test. It's like the sway test, or use a pendulum, so they can start testing food for food allergies and things like that. But if they're not on the level of 200, it doesn't work.
Yes.
They cannot get a swing on the pendulum. They cannot sense the muscle differentiation. So I always test clients before I do the emotional release and after the emotional release, because normally we
Of
do
where they are sitting on the map of consciousness, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So most the last 3 weeks, most of the people that I have done emotional release for is at level 200. And after we do the transition, and normally we like to do the transition when people sleep, because then they're more easier to reach. So most of them go up to 310, which is a much higher level. And at that level, their life, the view of life changes, and their level of consciousness is different. So they feel better. There's like, oh, it's like somebody opened my eyes and somebody took away some of the brain fog and things like that. So yeah, it's a very easy way to make people feel better and lighter and happier, and yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that I think it is so important for people to understand is that when you take a negative emotion away, you put something else in. Because if we leave that a cell or that void open in the body, then anything can come back in. And so what kind of what do you prefer putting back in its place?
I have, my favorite is love, joy, and bliss. And I made a picture behind me where it says love, joy, bliss, just to remind myself. But it depends on what I think they need. So for instance, if I take away nervousness, I always replace it with strength, courage, peace, and joy. And very often I add self-love, because I think that is so important. We have not learned to love ourselves. We have not learned to love ourselves. We need to learn to love ourselves. And peace, because we need to calm down. We need to take away stress and things like that. But I try to follow my intuition. And when I look at the person, you can very often analyze their face of what they need. And you can see from the list, they need strength, they need courage, they need self-love, they need flexibility, they need courage. Yeah, all that kind of thing. So very often I don't replace with one thing, but bucket of things, so they can really be uplifted.
Yes, it's such a gift. And I've been lucky enough that you've taught me over a few times to incorporate this beautiful technique as well. So I'm very, I need to practice more, definitely, but I'm very humbled that you thought I was ready to do this as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who know in muscle testing and feel that they can manage to do it can absolutely practice this way of helping people, because it's not rocket science at all.
No, and I think it's sorry.
You need a technique.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. But and what comes for me in as well is that there are still a lot of people that they struggle with the idea about separation, right? You and I, sure, we are now talking on a video conferencing call, but we are physically very far apart, but time and space when it comes to energy doesn't exist. And so it doesn't matter whether you are far away or close together. And I practice energy healing with different modalities as well. And I've had numerous times that the moment I agree with the person to meet, even if it's a week out, the healing already starts, because we've both given
Yes.
permission to meet, and then magic happens, which I find
Yeah.
it's still absolutely fascinating that that's how it works.
It's so fascinating. I tell people, it's like, so the intention is what starts the healing. So I like an open mind, pure intent, and the loving heart. So the intention is that I have a gift, I have a technique, I want to help you, and you want to be helped, and you have asked me to help you. That's the intention, and that's the connection. When we have that connection, and when people send me their picture, their name, and their date of birth, that's my invitation to help. So, and
Yes.
also when I give them the chart, I send them a book like What's Next, to give them ideas what they can do. I have a booklet about interpretation of the negative trapped emotions, so they can read about it. And in the list of What's Next, I have a lot of other modalities they can practice to uplift themselves. And one of the most popular thing is the Hawaiian prayer called Ho'oponopono. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Yes.
And yeah, and I've recently done it with a group of ladies, a lot of volunteers, people who have done emotional release, or people that with help with disease and so on. So we did Ho'oponopono 21 days, because
Wow.
that's how long it takes to change a habit according to science. So it's so easy. You say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And we repeated it in the morning when we are brushing our teeth or whatever, and then midday and before bed for 21 days. And we talked, we made like a group online, and people shared what came up. And for me, I've done it before, but not only for me personally, because I decided that I was going to treat myself with with some time, because I always help other people, and I do not take enough care of myself. So what I realized is how much I criticize myself and my body and things like that. I'm my worst critic. It's
Mm.
like, okay, I need to love myself. So I have started. I wrote down all the horrible things and I burned it. I didn't want it to be here. I didn't want that energy. So I don't criticize myself any longer. Well, I try to. And
Yeah, self-forgiveness and judgment has come up a lot for not judging myself, but I've been having a lot of conversations with others about who are we to judge, right?
yeah,
Not just ourselves, but also others.
yeah,
And I've spoken about this with other people, is looking back to where you were 10 years ago, and you might have, let's just talk about food, 10 years ago, you might have been going total vegan, and you
yeah,
didn't have lettuce shoes, and you didn't have honey in your tea, and you didn't nothing. And then through whatever circumstances, maybe the books you got introduced to, or a
mm,
health crisis, you've gone a full
mm,
180, and now you're just eating animal protein. And there could be so much self-loathing for that person you were 10 years ago. I'm like, oh, if I hadn't, and if I should have, and I
mm,
chastised the people that were eating meat at that time. It
yeah,
really doesn't matter what happened back then. Just go, at that time, I did the best that
mm,
I could with the tools that I had.
yeah,
And the book I'm reading right now of life that tells
mm,
me to eat meat. And maybe in 5 years' time, I'll just eat fruit, or and it's really just going, I'm here right now, and I'm doing the best that I can. And if we can apply that to all people, you
yeah,
mentioned divorce before. If
mm,
you've lived with a person for 10 years, you could do
mm,
all the self-loathing after you've left them.
mm,
They didn't, and they shouldn't, and they blah blah
mm,
whatever. They
yeah,
are not at the level, or they are not seeing the world the same way that you do, and that's okay,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you have an open heart, loving mind, pure intent, you turn out to be the best version of yourself you can be. at any moment, and it changes. When you're sick, you do your best. When you're on top of the world, you do your best. And what you criticize about yourself and in others is probably what you don't like. And because your thoughts is the clue to how you can improve yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm absolutely so happy that our lives have crossed, Emma, and that you have this beautiful, really easy way to help people shift some really big stuff. So how do people get in touch with you?
So the best way, I'm on all social media. I'm learning so much. So I'm on Telegram with Emotional Release by Emma, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And the best way is to send me an email. And my email address is emotionalreleasebyemma@proton.me. So it's the best way. Just send your pictures and your name, and I'll do whatever I can to help you.
That's awesome. And I'll put that all in the description below. So I look forward to seeing how this will all unfold. I can see a whole online course being developed by you with people like myself and others who are so ready to help the people. And I'll happily work with Italians if you happen to be from Italy. Contact me.
It's so funny because I live in the place and all my neighbors are from Italy, and there's so many Italians here, and I do love them. But I mean, I'm so happy I didn't grow up in Italy because enough about that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you, Emma. Is there anything you would like to share?
Well, just thank you for having me. I mean, I love talking about this. I'm very passionate about emotional release, and I think it's a very quick and easy way to help so many people who really need it, because the stress levels in people right now is very high, and keep up the good work.
That's right. It's time to take that jacket off. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Bye.